safe, keep us healthy, Father. I ask you just to keep doing what you're doing, watching over us. Father, I ask you to watch over Sean as he goes through these times, Father. Just know that, let him know that you're with him, Father. Comfort him through these times. Father, I ask you just to bless each and every man here, Father. Just help us through the day. Keep us safe. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I'll praise you for it. I was troubleshooting something yesterday. Kept tripping. Finally done something. I was walking back to the panel. I was like, man, in Jesus' name, this is going to hold. Put that baby on. I yelled to everybody, y'all think there ain't power in Jesus' name?
Power to pen.
Yeah. We own the power.
Morning. I guess we're starting this worship song.
Yeah, there you go, man.
Axl Rose.
Anyone else with long hair? Bundy. Leading lineman. Old school. What book have you been using?
Right there, sir. Thank you. Yep. What's your shopping, please?
Anybody else need a book? Anybody else don't have a book? Yeah.
Would there be any way that
Yeah. Yeah, Chris has some. Alright, man. It just always seems like it's been like a month.
Long weekend. Long.
Tell you card. Over $10. Ain't worried about it.
The Bible is full of grammar.
Full of grammar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, words.
Yeah.
Sentences, paragraphs, pages, chapters.
But like also synonyms, right? Interchangeable synonyms. Kind of confusing sometimes.
Yeah.
No, good.
Hey, you got a serious bud, you ask your serious. I don't serious. I want a question. I'm serious. I got my 4 more.
I ain't got no 4 more. My dad will do my mom like that. She'll say something and he'll be like, ooh, you got 6 more times to say something crazy before I do what you tell me to do.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
That's how it always ends up.
Yeah. I'll do what you say.
Well, good. Well, good. I've been on that. Well, good. It's really not good. Well, good.
They got me in trouble.
Amen, amen, amen. This man out here, Magic 8 Ball and Bobby.
You need to talk to me after.
That's so crazy, man. It's surprising.
About their magic 8 ball, and he's like,
I love to talk to you, Bobby.
jeez.
You don't need nothing.
Really, it makes my day.
Jeez.
Yeah. No, Bobby, it doesn't really bother me.
Well, good.
Except unless we're on a job.
No. You gotta work on.
It's
You have to
stuck
work
now,
on your
boy.
tact. Do you know what tact is? Tact is like the approach at the right time. You know what I mean? That's what tact means. The right time. It's
I was
about-
waiting on Jason. Hey Siri, what is tact?
I'll Google it later.
Something you learn in the military for some reason, eh? Probably because it's tactical.
Yeah.
Tactical timing. Tact.
Tactical for wait, so they're all happy, laughing, smiling.
All right, now,
Yeah.
now that we're in a good place.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Gotta go to regular trains.
Feel like they just got
Yeah.
feel like they just got paid.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, y'all ever watch that Band of Brothers series on HBO?
Yeah.
Where he like whoever their sergeant is, he's a major jerk, and then he kind of gives him a break, and he's like, take a day off, no sweat, whatever. And then he tells the guys, like, I like spaghetti. So they're in there, I mean, slamming it, right? 4 or 5 plates, taking off each other's food, what the other ones can't eat. Well, Buddy comes marching in, full decked out, and he's like, hey, we're running 10 miles up, 10 miles down on about 5 plates of spaghetti each. And they're all sitting there like noodles dripping out of their mouth and like sitting there looking at each other. And the next cutscene where they're running up. Sick. If that ain't tact, I don't know what. Well, it's not really tact. It's kind of conniving, but we'll leave that right there. That's
called a setup.
Yeah.
Oh, are we on Faith Produces Patience today?
Wow.
You flip to the right page.
Yeah. I'm just saying, man, it's the fruit of the spirit, Bobby.
Showed you a sign.
Yeah. That's right.
Jeez. Jesus, what is a sign? I'm gonna be Siri and everything today.
Yeah, where's Rick at Bobby? Knowledge is key, man. You don't know. Find out.
I ain't got an iPhone.
You learn how to do something, or you learn something, and only all-timers or whatever can take that from you. Something you know the rest of your life. Unless you're right.
Shots fired.
Shots.
Point blank. Was a woman shot.
I love my job.
Yeah. You write the papers yesterday?
Yeah, I got a page and a half left, and I'll be good to go. Got to turn it in on Thursday.
How long you got? What you got left?
Oh.
Another year or two?
Yeah, about a year and a half, right at.
That's not bad.
No, I mean it's not. It's flying, really.
'Cause
Like
you're
I'm midway through. You know what I'm saying? This semester, and I'm.
Yeah.
I feel like Ricky Bobby out here.
So
You
you
know
got
what I'm saying? Like, I
another
don't know
year,
what to do
you
with my hands.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
Was it a 4-year?
Yeah.
Well,
What's your cram?
really, I mean, in all honesty, if I could zoom through it, I could chop half that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't take summer this year, which is kind of crummy, but that's okay because it means I can take it next year. And I'm telling you, like, it's fast. Like, I'm already on. I mean, right now I'm balancing. Like, I've got half of what I'm taking is prereqs that are necessary, and the other half is stuff that's like actually pertinent to what I'm doing.
So you can move through on your own speed? Is that how it works?
I mean, basically yeah.
How many
kinda.
hours you taking?
15.
Oh, that's huge. That's a big
Yeah,
one.
15.
12 or more is like a full load, right?
Yeah, I tried to take 18, but because I swapped to education, I had to drop a class.
How many
which
do you
is,
need? Credits. Like one something?
I want to say it's like 145 or 155 or something like that.
What's your plan when you get through with it?
Dude, if I'm super duper lucky,
So blessed. We don't believe in that.
to teach for real, secondary anywhere from 8th grade on up.
Elementary? Secondary, so I mean like in a public
Yeah,
school.
like middle school on to high school, public school, private school. I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you.
You want to teach at a Christian?
Don't matter. I'm under the impression that and not even in like the way that all of the old heads that I know like to talk about it, like the upcoming generation they have no understanding how important intellectualism is. Like, use your brain. You know what I'm saying? You've got a brain. Like, there's one of my favorite bands from the 90s, like one of their lines on like 6 t-shirts I have is, you got a brain, use it. And there's like a major jab towards, especially like, and it you know, it's not necessarily them, they're just kind of like the crap end of the stick recipients, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of stuff going on and everything flows down. That's how everything works. So, you know, we got kids that don't understand the importance of thinking.
Higher learning.
Period. Thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything is, and that's not even just feeling driven. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm so tired of hearing that answer from kids that are 15, 16 years old. I'm not expecting you to know everything, but you got to have some sort of something, some plans, some understanding, some whatever. And, you know, it's to the point to where people are like, oh, that's such a dumb question. I'm like, is it for somebody that doesn't know the answer? Is it a dumb question or is it curiosity? It's only dumb if you told it to them already. If you hadn't given them the answer, then you're just as responsible for their not knowing as they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's and that's because it's the lane that I stick in. It's a role that I find that's incredibly important because there's not a lot of people that are going to be left to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even necessarily about like, hey, go get a degree, or hey, go do this, or hey, go do that. But like, whatever you do, exercise the ability that you have to use your mind and quit being so impressionable, or quit being so narrow-minded, or quit being so oblivious, or whatever you want to call it. The capacity for you to learn and understand literally whatever you want to is there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We got Siri. You could ask Google and find anything out. We got books on books on books. I got books on paper, books on the phone, books that'll read themselves to me. There's no reason we shouldn't be knowing what we don't know.
Do you think that's what the problem is that the information is so readily available that people are like,
It's abused.
I could Google that anytime.
Right.
I don't really
need to know it. Yeah.
It's neglected.
Like, why do I need to know it?
And
Yeah,
what,
I
like,
could Google that.
the importance of like, what you have to understand in learning, period, is
That's serious.
we've got to know, and the same way goes biblically. I mean, it doesn't necessarily only pertain to, like, you know, carnality or whatever, but you'll when you find out, that's why you have preachers that have like shtick sermons, right? They specialize in a specific topic of theology because they love it, right? Theology proper as a whole, yes, but there's something about this one area that's impacted them, greatly.
Right.
So they find better enjoyment in that specifically or expressly while using everything else to come through and further support it. You find the same thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, those kind of things, those are principles that are mirrored the same way in the spirit as they are in the natural. So you find people, that's why I think, like, to me, half of college is a joke, really, because I think high school should be what you use your last, really 4 years, but at least 2 years of school to narrow what exactly it is that you want to do with the rest of your life or what you're inclined to, and then quit wasting money on classes that don't have anything to do with what you want to do for the rest of your life, right? Like, I don't need the anatomy of a frog to be a meteorologist. So why am I sitting here taking, you know what I'm saying? Like, those sorts of, it's point, you know what I'm saying? It's some of those things. Common knowledge is good, 100%. I'll never, you know, common knowledge should be common knowledge. That's why you don't have common sense anymore, because it's not common. But like, insofar as everything else, there are things that you can find in people's lives earlier on that they're more inclined to, that if you can get your finger in that hole, you know what I'm saying? Like, if this is what it is, and we can kind of start pushing people towards this and giving them the information that is so readily available, and instead of them waiting to be like, well, you know what, I kind of like this, but one day when I actually feel like doing something with it, I'll look it up. And then they're 32, and there's something, you know what I'm saying, that they've never really done anything that they love to do because they haven't quite figured out what it is, because they never really had any help. Because all the voices that were around me when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do was, you got to do this, and if you don't do this, this won't work, and life won't work, and X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, look, lucky for me, I know exactly what it is that I'm trying to get done, because if I was like half the other kids that I graduated with, frantic for the last 6 weeks of school because I still hadn't accepted any kind of invitation to college, I don't know what I'm going to get my degree for, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with the rest of my life, I don't have money to get out and do this outside from my parents' house, so I'll feel like a failure if I live there for 4 more years while I'm going to school, X, Y, Z, and then A all over again, because there's no real direction. It's just information dump, and you do with it what you will. There's no real exercisable matching to, here's who you are, here's what you like, and here's what you're good at. How can we fix those things up to where you can be the most successful person? Not businessman, you know what I'm saying? Not worker, not employee of the month, person, period. Because if you can be a good you, then your jobs will hire you for the rest of your life.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And that it's personal, individual development that's more, that's why, you know what I'm saying? Like with that, the make disciples verse, it's virtually the same thing, just in a redeemed nature. You learn everything you can learn about the specific lane that you're going to walk in for the rest of your life. Why do we focus so much on what Jesus did? Because that's what a disciple is. It's a compound word. Disciplined learner of what? It could be a disciple of electrical work. It could be a disciple of literature. It could be a disciple of history. In this case, it's the disciple of Jesus Christ. So when you get into that place where you're like, look, okay, I'm taking on this role. I'm a disciplined learner of this thing, of this person, of this attitude, of this lifestyle, of this mindset, and all of those things that are encompassed there. When you can get people to be legitimate, authentic, sonship-based disciples, you don't got to worry about tithing. You don't got to worry about church attendance. You don't got to worry about the way they treat people. You don't got to worry about them having bad attitudes on the job, because they're disciplined learners of who? Of Jesus. And everything that he exemplifies, if they're actually disciplined learners of who he is, means, you know what? I found this out about him. It doesn't pair up with what I look like. Which way's the better way? Him. So I'm going to fix this or drop this or adjust this or whatever the case is and continue on the way that he looks. And if you operate according to your entire life at that standard, you will never fail. And if you do, everybody's going to know that you're putting your entire heart into trying to be like something better than what you are. And they'll forgive you and give you grace and give you mercy and give you second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth chances all the time, because you've dedicated yourself to knowing that this makes me better. I can't do this by myself. I'm into community and all the other things that we get into right now. And that's why you could get into this room right now, and as much as everybody gets under each other's skin at certain times, there's never a moment where you're so done with somebody that you're done with them, because it's not in your nature anymore, right? To the same degree, on the flip, in the educational system, you can get to a point to where somebody will try and fail and try and fail and try, and I'll never ever get tired of it, because they're trying. And they're trying to do better for themselves. And I'm not going to leave somebody hanging that's trying to do better for themselves but just doesn't know how. That's the entire gist. That's where we come in, and the element of that that's important is really in Matthew 28, like we were reading yesterday, teaching them all those things in which I've commanded you. We operate according to that responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't think the teaching in Matthew 28 is the same kind of teaching that's listed in Ephesians 4. But we're still responsible for the people that we're going to go out and make disciples for. We've got to relay every bit of information that we know to them as properly as we can, so that we don't cause them to start acting like something that they think is what Christ looks like and it's not. Right? The role of the fivefold is incredibly important, because they all hold, you've got apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. You get to the point of like, it's kind of out of order, but the way that church operates now, it's not wrong, it's just not complete, right? Like we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where like what church is now is not what church is first century church. Their collective gathering, like what we have on Sundays and Wednesdays, was not bring people with you so they get saved and get healed. That was going on in the street. That was going on in the business place. That was going on in the home. All of the collective assembly that they were doing, what Jesus refers to as the ecclesia, was their getting together for worship, for prayer, and for teaching.
Right.
Literally, that's it. That was all that was going on. Preaching was going on outside the church building, or I said the church building. They were meeting in each other's houses.
Right.
So all of that was happening. All the preaching is more of a persuasive discussion, right? It's what Paul does a lot of when he's in public and he's debating these people and they're going back and forth. He's in a mode of persuasion where he's getting these people to understand what he's trying to say and how everything that he's experienced in his time as a Pharisee / in his time with Jesus. Pharisees, other than their attitude and their heart, not wrong by any means. They're doing exactly what it was that they thought they were supposed to be doing without the room for inclusion of who Jesus was. So then when you get into what Paul's talking about, he's like, look, all this stuff is fine and good, but without Jesus, none of it matters. And then he's giving them example A, example B, example C. You talk about this, he did this. You talk about this prophecy, here he is. You talk about this attitude, here he is. Everything that you've got going on right now exists in the person of Jesus Christ. That's preaching. The rest of what he does when he's writing his letters, that's all instructional. how to live,
Right.
how to operate according to one another, how to act with other believers in a body, how to act with people when they've done you wrong, how to act with people when they're just out doing wrong, how to act with people that are coming from different backgrounds than you, but now they're all grafted into the same family. It's all instructional. It's all teaching. So you get these two different modes, and I'm pretty sure that is a different type of I think it's a different type of anointing than what you get in the when you make disciples. Make sure that you're teaching them what you know type thing, because this is it's a little bit different. But we all hold that responsibility here, which is why, to the base point, what we do right now in the morning is so important, because this is our information that we are receiving from the Lord to go out and to do exactly what He told us to do with it. Make disciples and teach them of all the things that I've commanded you. So now, if they're not submitted to, like, you know, a specific house where they're getting something like that all of the time, you are the best representation of teaching that they know. You're the best they got. So it's the best for us to make sure that we're studied up, right, and in tune and in alignment with the Lord as best as we possibly can on the most constant basis possible, to make sure that until they get somewhere where they're constantly being fed and taught, they've got something going on and they're not just sitting there stagnant and dying. Amen. Great opener.
You think you're going to be happy with being able to teach without being able to talk about Jesus? You know what I mean? In a public setting, like a public school?
Yeah, I think I'll be okay with that. Mainly because I'm under the impression that there's not a single thing that you can talk about, and this is just me because, you know, we've been doing this for a long time. I know everything circles back to Him.
It's your character.
I can teach you about every single thing on the face of the planet insofar as being a good human being, and it's always going to come back to Him, right? It'll cap out, you know what I'm saying, in the public school when I can't get up there and start preaching, it'll cap out, but there's going to be something that's just, I'm telling you, man, because it's the same thing that happens to everybody else. I know people that are great people. Great. I mean, like, seriously, great, moral people, good people. I don't know how else to say it. Not bad people, really good people.
Right.
But they've ceilinged a little bit. There's no further to go other than just being good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then on top of that, you got to think about this. Well, I'm good, and my life is still trash sometimes. We still, because they're good people, they're out from under the covering of the Lord. And you'll find that out. You can go for the rest of your life be good without God. I don't think it's impossible. Right? But the Bible calls that a form of godliness without power. Right? So you'll get to the point to where you're like, man, I'm doing a really good job. Right? I got good stuff going on. Everything's, you know, I don't do this. I don't do this. I do a lot of this. Why can't I beat sickness? Why is my kid still depressed? Why can't I keep a job? Why, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of these things that are coming and attacking that you don't even know are attacking because you're not understanding to that level. There's going to be a snap where something's going to happen, right? And I don't say it in a declarative way as that I'm hoping that something bad happens, but it's life, right? Something's going to happen that's going to prove to somebody doing good enough is not good enough. Doing good enough is not right, and we know that. There's nothing that you could do good enough ever. Ever. But it'll come. It'll come. I'm not so much worried about that. It actually really excites me, because one of my favorite things about being able to teach, especially, not to sound like I'm trying to take advantage, but people that are impressionable, like people that don't know better, that you get basically from the ground up, and you can actually teach them the right way instead of having to like unlearn and relearn like you could do with a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of things that we know that we thought that we knew, that we're having to unlearn in order to relearn. Getting people at the base model and being able to build them up from there on out, and to see how, like, okay, I know this, now here's something that's antithetical to what I learned, so they're not going to participate in it, and then there's like that light bulb moment where it clicks and they're like, yo, I understand why I didn't do that now, is, especially when it's in a place of spiritual teaching, is one of the most glorious things you'll ever see in your life. You know what I'm saying? And y'all that got kids will probably experience that on levels. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll have your kids, you know, they'll do whatever, or even in like little things while they're young, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to teach you something, and you know, they're not doing the thing, and then they do it, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is why. And you're like, yeah, imagine that on something as grand of a scale as like life as a whole. Life is awful, life is hard, life is this, life is that, Jesus, 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 and then one day it clicks, and you're like, that's what I've been waiting on the entire time. It's virtually the exact same thing. So,
are you going to have the degree that you need in the school that you're at now to teach in the public?
Yeah, that's what I'm going for right now. Ryan?
Going back to like Siri and Google and all that, they being readily available.
Yeah.
And Josh said that's the problem. I feel like, and this is hard for me, especially like, that's the thing, fear, don't think right. But anyway, I feel like the search for the answer is what is like a whole basis of learning.
That's right,
like,
yeah.
if you can just Google it, you never like.
Right.
Jonathan can tell me something 3-4 times. This is what you're supposed to do, and I won't understand it. And finally, he's like, "Bro, why? Why is it this way?" And then going through the process, that's how I learned.
That's correct. Yeah.
It's like you can tell me the answer, but that's not learning it.
Yeah.
Like the search for the answer and the search not only how but why, and I feel like that.
That's right.
It is. I mean, it's scriptural. You got to think. These are things that we're talking about. This scriptural principle that relates to natural happenings, right? So now you've got like Proverbs 25:2. It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the glory of man to search it out. We don't really like talking about glory of man because it makes us feel like we're talking about being stuck up and boastful and prideful and whatever else. But there's a glory that exists for us who bear the image of God when we're searching what we're searching for in the name of God, right? So the KJV translates that as it's the glory of kings, and kings in that reference, like if we're sitting and we're talking and you parallel across Scripture, what does Revelation 1:6 call us? Kings and priests. So now we're here, and I've got my identity as to who I am in the Lord, searching out the things of the Lord. That's what makes the glory of God available to be shown, not only in heaven, but through me on the earth. It's literally the bulk of the importance. Right. So when you sit and you think about, man, like what is there to know? There's a lot to know. You know what I mean? And I think that's why like we get so torn up, and this is just life period with like staying. I'm not saying that you should like, please don't hear what I'm saying. Don't butt into what everybody else is going on or what everybody else has going for them. When there's a section, I forget where it's at, where Paul's like, hey, we don't boast in anything except for what we've done. Right? I'm not trying to take glory for what somebody else did or what somebody else who came out from under me did and say that it's mine. I'm talking about what I put my hands to is the only thing I can boast in. And in all honesty, I can't even boast there. I can only boast in the Lord. Right. That's the whole point of the entire gist of what he's talking about. We have the ability with as much knowledge as we have to learn as much as we can, and not I'm not trying to say get into people's way, but you can put your hands to more than one thing and give God glory in multiple areas. Yeah. It's one of to me, the biggest blessing that comes from readily available knowledge all of the time. What can I find out about this, and that, right? Like, sometimes I beat myself up for the fact that I've worked like 6 jobs in 4 years, right? Sounds kind of trashy, right? You're like, you can't hold a job, he's always switching stuff up, whatever. And I'm like, no, but I've worked really overlapped 3 jobs at a time in multiple occasions because I like doing what I'm doing. To me, it's not work, right? And I mean, it makes me tired, but I enjoy it. And I find a way to channel every bit of what I'm doing to bring the name of the Lord higher and higher and higher. So here, like, this is easy because obviously we're talking about Jesus. Yeah. Working at the restaurant, man, I'm talking about the dude that I told you about with the ribs and the tattoos the other day, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? You don't get those kind of interactions by not being good at something different, right? Yeah, sometimes you just gotta, people are fun. So you get to the point to where you understand that, like, you know, yes, God has a calling on your life. Yes, God has a grace for you to do specific things really, really, really well and favorable, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that you like. Right. So now you've got to sit and wonder, but like, man, God, did you give me these things as a test to like distract me? Right. And he's like, no, do something else that you like and it's going to be okay. Right. Why? Because his grace and favor are on you. What you put your hands to are going to prosper. If you're planted, like we talked about being planted next to the rivers of living water, whatever it is that you're doing is going to produce something. Right. And then if it's not, you just be like, okay, it's not, and cut it off. And you weren't necessarily wrong. You weren't necessarily right. You were trying to channel a different avenue to bring glory to the name of the Lord. Amen. He's not going to punch you in the face for that. Right? No, he's not, Jason. Don't worry about it. He's not.
Is that his character?
Nah, it's not scary.
Joe got a guy to shave his beard.
Did that.
This guy had a beard like 3 feet long. He's had it for like 6 years. Joe got him to shave it, man, with the love of Christ.
Yeah.
Hold on. Now we can just get him to cut that hair. Talking about the dude from Oasis?
Mm-hmm.
Shaved his beard, man.
We bought him a beard kit as like a token of like I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, so a couple days later, I'm like, dude, I got you that beard kit just so you know I love you and I'm trying to make this right and doing everything, and then like a couple days later.
Get that cheeseburger.
He found out that Joe got it for him and not Josh, and he cut his whole beard off.
He claims now.
Yeah.
He claims it. But
Yeah,
that's,
get
you
the
don't
cheeseburger,
leave
that's
some
weird.
if you.
Joe, I didn't mean to bring this up. I thought you were just going to have a better attitude about it.
Praise the Lord, no more beers.
Yeah, bless God.
I am too. I'm
Yeah.
like, come on, Timothy, grow up a little bit.
Yeah,
But
it's good. You're getting to it, man.
Yeah.
I missed something from her.
It's okay. It's all right.
I'll feel you.
Yeah.
Next
Just trying to
thing
love
you know-
on the guy.
No, I get that. And then.
Hey Siri. Hey Siri, what did I miss?
Nothing about
Oh, hey, she actually popped up. Sorry, Siri.
Yeah. Loved on the guy. He loved the beard kit when he thought it was from Josh.
Thought it was from me. And then Joe's like, hey, I guess. So hold on. So thought it was from you. Loved it. Was grateful for the gift. Used it on his face. Used it.
For like 3 days.
Then found out it was from Joe.
Shaved his beard.
All to the beard. Oh, okay. So it's now a Joe thing.
I'm not using this kid.
It's been a Joe thing.
Shaved his beard.
Right on.
Wow.
People had fun.
Zach did his, man. Zach did his for a fundraiser while he was there over in Indonesia right now, and he was like, he did something. They were they were raising money for something or other that they needed while they were over there, and he was like, man, he did like a Shave It or Save It online fundraiser, gave people like X amount of time to click on the poll or whatever, and it was like for all the people that vote either which way, whoever wins, all of the people that voted for whichever one donate $5 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So people that didn't want to donate, they just didn't vote. People that did, shave it, save it, whatever else. Sadly, it was like 40-something to 6. Shave it, and I was like, oh, what is wrong with you people? Let the man have his beard, whatever. It's not how it works. So sure enough, something like for almost 2 years, right? His beard's like kind of out to here. It's like big, nice, and shaped, and whatever else, and he's out there caveman in it now, so it's like all, all thick and whatever. And so he's got all the people on his team, and they're taking one swipe, handing it to the next person, and taking the next swipe, and handing it to the next person. So they're doing good. I talked to him
I think this is
day before
faith
yesterday.
versus patience.
Oh yeah, we're here. You ready? Luckily, since we're talking about patience, none of y'all have gotten irate with the fact that we haven't got here yet, and that means that you're patient. Bless God.
We're a
little tired too.
I was trying to give you some slack, but we'll go with tired too. That's okay. Bless the Lord. Cool. So now this is what we were talking about earlier. Back to the very beginning. Interchangeable synonyms, Jason. Grammar, right? The Bible is full of grammar, right? Don't worry about it. So you get to things like this. 2 Timothy 3:10 is the verse that we're on. You've carefully followed my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, love, and perseverance. Patience is the equivalent when you're talking about, like when you read through the fruit of the Spirit, you'll see long-suffering instead of patience sometimes. It's an interchangeable synonym. So there's your example. Right. Come on. Jason.
Googling. He was Googling.
Patience and long-suffering.
Yeah.
When you're reading through the fruits of the Spirit, that's an interchangeable synonym. They're virtually the same thing, just different words. Right? Okay. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, suffering for a long time. That's literally exactly what it is. So,
I do get it. I got it.
I have it. I got it. I'm not going to let go of it. So, patience is long-suffering. Good. So you get to the point where you'll read other verses like in James 1, right? Count it all joy when your faith is tested, for your testing of your faith produces endurance, patience, long-suffering. It's all kind of a big, kind of juggle up. Sure. And I think we've discussed this before, but I don't quite remember. So let's go back over this for a second, because you'll find different levels of this. Think about, it's like my friend Hunter runs for fun, and I'll never understand it. Like, 0 sense to me. I don't get it. So, but I'm talking like he runs 10, 13, 17 miles a day. Just for the, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like he is an animal that runs. I'm talking for no reason whatsoever, right? But like he's just like, yeah, me and such and such, I'll call you in a little bit. We're gonna go run this trail, and they'll a few weeks ago he ran up a whole mountain and ran back down. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, he'll stop and they'll get off and take breaks and like sit and they'll pack they'll take the drawstring book bags and run and take the protein bars and stuff to stop off and eat kind of halfway up and sit and hang out and take pictures. He sees a lot of really cool stuff because of where they go to run these trails at. But they'll run up and run down, and he'll easily do, I'm talking close to 20 miles in a day. You know what I'm saying? Almost every single day. Almost. And that's like he just goes. And I'm like, yo,
not for me,
I'll be right here when you come back down, right? Like I made it about this far. I'm just gonna sit and look at this tree. It's a nice tree. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And yeah. Is that your boulder? That is a nice boulder. So we're at just out here hanging out. But he's got a piece of this, and I really came to understand this because it's a really good picture. When you use running, period. Let's say he's to run 20 miles flat, right, without stopping. That's endurance. Really, really, really good endurance, right? Perseverance then would be 20 miles inclined with rocks and sticks and turnarounds and loop-de-loops and stuff to jump over. Pine cones. Yeah, you'll roll an ankle on one of them bad boys if you're not careful. You know what I'm saying? So,
Cuckleburs.
Yeah, you'll get to the point to where you'll start to see yourself and be like, man, my endurance I've been doing really good. Like I've been going without stopping. And hey, for real, kudos to you, because sometimes that's really hard. In all honesty, I mean, because you know how it is. You'll be running on a flat surface, but it don't matter. You're tired, right? Your chest hurts. Stuff's, you know what I'm saying, it's hard to breathe. Your feet are on fire. Your legs are sore, and you're like, man, like, not that you're facing any resistance, but you got a lot of internal stuff going on that you really is a feasible reason to quit running. In all honesty, good, legitimate reasons, right? Perseverance, on the other hand, is it's endurance with obstacles. Is basically the best way to put it, because now, yeah, like I could run straight for 20 miles and I'd be enduring or whatever, but persevering is like, man, I'm running 20 miles uphill in the rain. It's slick. There's snakes and pine cones and wolves and a whole bunch of other stuff out here, but I'm not gonna quit, even though there's stuff in my way. And I got to jump over some stuff and sometimes go off track and get around some stuff and maybe sit and figure out where I'm going to go next. I'm still not going to quit. So it's literally just endurance with obstacles. It's basically the best way to explain perseverance. So when you get to the place now where we're talking about like this verse in James, right? Count it all joy when you fall into, I'm reading from the KJV, when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. And we're going to get into that next piece, not tomorrow, but Thursday, talking about faith leads to spiritual perfection. So we'll be kind of right back to this verse in a couple of days. But you'll get to the point to where you understand, okay, now I've got faith in the Lord. And when this is the importance of knowing the Word. When we talk about faith comes by hearing, hearing by the Word of God. Think about how long it took, really, from Adam to Jesus. That's a long time, right? To be incredibly honest, I've not found anywhere that I've read or any person that I've read of any kind of biblical history or theology that really knows
the exact time,
how far it was from like Adam to Moses, right? Like there's the potential for that to be like a few thousand years, right? Say it again.
I think it's 2 and 2.
Okay, so right around 2,000 years. Then from Moses to Jesus is another close to 2,000 years, somewhere give or take. So you're thinking, right? Like,
a lot of years.
Good God Almighty, bro. Mankind is sitting here having no idea how on earth they're going to get out of this
Mess.
carnal bind that they're stuck in because of their ancestors, right? So it's honestly amazing when you sit and think about it how tightly they hold to the belief in God throughout the entire time. Now, multiple times, of course, you see them, the Israelites, they go off and do something crazy, right? Like they burn all their earrings and make a cow, or, find some totem pole to worship, or, whatever else. There's, you know,
What's an astrophone?
it's like, oh,
Jump down.
it's a big stick, right? And you're like, yeah. So this stick is supposed to make sure that we have lots of kids. That makes perfect sense.
Whoa.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll find whatever because there's something, and we know this, there's some sort of innate desire to have something to pour yourself out to all of the time. And it's incredibly difficult when what you've been promised that's going to happen, you ain't seeing it yet. And from what I've been told, this here stick is supposed to fix all the problems that this here God has been saying he's going to fix but hasn't done quite yet. Right? So in their old mind, that may have worked a little bit better. We now, of course, know that, yes, it took a forever time. Jesus showed up. Jesus did the work. And now the next thing that we're waiting on second coming. You know what I'm saying? We're not even having to worry about the same stuff that they were worrying about in the first place. I like that point that was made yesterday, right? In Isaiah, it's I will be, or I am. Peter comes through. Say it again.
By his stripes we are healed.
We are healed versus
we were healed.
We were healed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're living in a different understanding of what has been done, right? Like they knew Jesus is coming. I know this is going to happen. Well, now we know Jesus came. We know it has happened, and all we're waiting for is basically the second alignment. Is pretty much what we're getting into. So there's an element to placing our faith in the Lord that enables us to say, okay, like we've talked about, I know what's coming. If my life is trash for the rest of forever, at least I've got hope, at least I've got joy, at least I've got, but now you get to the patience part, and I hope you're seeing how kind of these things progress, because when we began with joy, that is despite circumstances, right? When we came with hope, that's also despite circumstances with a long viewing. Now I'm looking forward and I'm trying to formulate, okay, I know that everything around me is awful sometimes, but I've got a hope beyond what this circumstance is, or beyond what this life is. Now you get to the point, all of that sounds good, minus the fact that you're like, man, so, this is a good idea, except for life is still going to hurt. Like, it would be way easier to have a hope in something good to come if life was also going to be good while I waited. Right? Makes good sense. Good logic, right? Doesn't always happen like that. This is why faith-producing patience is so important, because what you'll do is you can have a hope all day long, but if there is nothing working on the inside of you that is birthed in the Holy Spirit of God that produces your ability to wait on that hope, the hope doesn't matter. Right? For some people, and I don't understand because I'm not quite there, for some people that hope is enough, right? They could go through life trial and test and terrible thing, and hey, this hope is the hope. They're not sweating anything. Patience, on the other hand, is my ability to. I really think the reason it's a fruit of the Spirit is because you'll get to the point to where that hope is enough, and it is, and then for some reason something's different. You're like, God, I wish this would happen tomorrow. Like, we talked about that right before, where I'm sick of waiting on this thing. I'm excited for it, and I know it's supposed to come, and I know I'm not supposed to be sick of waiting, but I'm sick of waiting. Now, I told Jason it's like watching God play chess. Like you got your two sides, it's moves and counter moves, and I'm trying to pray however I can to get him to hit that clicker faster, so he'll move his moves quicker and make everybody else move their moves quicker. So can we speed this game up? Checkmate, let's go home. And like that's what I'm saying. Like we pray like that sometimes.
It's hard to pray so hard for something and know that the Lord wants to do it and believe that He's gonna do it, and then just wait on Him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy.
It is hard.
You see how hard I've been pressing into this.
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
It's not even really for me, just because I've seen you do this in my life.
Yep.
I know you want to do it in others' lives. Hey, where you at?
Yeah.
Like,
And that's why we get into the definition itself of long suffering, right? Joe nailed it on the head. It's suffering long, right?
Yeah.
It's the ability to say that the belief that I've placed in the Lord enables me to, when necessary, when He doesn't answer the prayer right away.
Right.
Or even, and I say right away, sometimes our version of right away isn't even tomorrow. Sometimes we'd be okay with 3 months. You know what I'm saying? We'll pray, and we're like, man, that was so fast. It really wasn't. 3 months it can be a really long time, depending on the situation that you're praying for.
But I see now the things He's taught me
Mhm.
just praying for this one thing. So going into it, I was like, Lord, do it like this, do it like that. Then you continue to pray for it, and don't see it happen. Then it's like, Lord, however you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Rather the dude gets locked up, you know what I'm saying? He goes to a team. He don't have to go to the center. He don't have to. Like, I don't even have to be involved in him getting clean and
Sure.
living a better. But if that's your will, use me in whatever way. Then it's to the point where you're like, man, hey,
Just get it done.
Just do it.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You do this.
I think I wanted to point out that, and this is for me too, that this is truth. That sometimes when it's like when I know I want something, somebody else for me, and I go into prayer. Sometimes, okay, I don't want to do it. Sometimes I just start praying and thanking God and recognizing for myself and reminding Him that I know who He is, and be like, man, you're just like powerful and awesome. He answers the prayer without me even specifically asking for
Having
it.
to say
Just
anything
like he
expressly
did for
for it,
Elijah.
yeah.
When Elijah was like, they were going, y'all know the story of calling down fire onto the altar. He didn't even pray for God to call down fire. Next thing you know, buckets of flame were pouring out of heaven onto the sacrifice. Boom, and I don't believe he even prayed for God to send fire.
Amen.
He knows what? He already knows everything, man. He counted the couple little bit of hairs I got on my head. He knows that. Justin, you lost 3 today. I know. You don't have to remind me.
All right.
So that's the point I think of this morning, that at least that we can stop with, and we can finish the rest of it tomorrow. But just to know, right, the interchangeability of patience and long suffering, because sometimes it's not just patience. We think a lot of times is like the ability to go through hard stuff and like still smile. You know what I mean? Because we're just waiting and we're being patient. I'm sitting and I'm waiting my turn and watching everybody else go before you that's not been waiting anywhere near as long as you have. And you mean to tell me that you're still not upset about that sometimes? Maybe not all the time, but sometimes. Sometimes that's just how it is, man. For whatever reason, look, don't look at me. You're going to have to talk to Big Man about it when you get up there, because that'll be some questions that I ask him as well. But you get to the point to where you understand, I'm not sitting here beating down the door the entire time, right? Yeah. Because his ways are higher than mine already. So if there's something that I got to wait on, I'm going to wait on it. But patience is what enables me to continue to do what I was doing. Because a lot of times what we'll do is everything's going full force and we're okay. Something don't happen that we want to. We quit everything, waiting on this one thing. Right. Yeah. So now here I am, and I'm like, man, well, you know what? You didn't answer this, and now my life's a wreck, and my marriage is bad, and my finances are crap, and this is, and God's like, well, I never told you to quit all that other stuff that was going great while you were waiting on this one little thing right here. Right. So now you're pinning all of your hardships on Him, when really you just quit being a good steward because you're upset. And that's not His fault. Right. Patience is what enables us to be able to say, you know what? Even in the long run, while all this other stuff is going good, and I know that I'm incomplete without this thing going good, I'm still going to suffer long with this one inability for it to fit, or this one thing that's exclusively bad right now, or whatever. And I'm going to let it. We're just going to let it do, right? I'm going to count it a joy when my faith is being tested, because it's literally most times when we're impatient, we could really allow those things to perfect it. Like I like what Jason was talking about. I've learned 6 different things waiting on this one thing that hadn't been fixed yet. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's the perfecting work. While I'm waiting on this to happen, if I'm still pressing into the Lord while this is not going on, He'll continue to teach in all of these other areas until this one decides, for whatever reason, like, hey, if it's not today, it'll be 3-4 weeks from now. It just one day decides to flourish, and now everything's full. Now we're to the point to where I wanted to be in the beginning, and I didn't backtrack while I was waiting on this one thing, because I learned how to suffer long in everything else while I was waiting on this to come to pass. So we'll stop there for this morning. And go ahead and pray this thing out. We ran a few minutes over. Awful. Bless God. Anybody got any prayer requests?